back to Monday All Weekend, everybody. We are back. We're a little bit late, but we're here. We're here, and we are going to be talking about the movie that just came out this past weekend, Hunger Games: A Song of
A
Ice and
ballad.
Fire.
A Ballad. I butchered that. I butchered the name on that.
No. It's fine because it's a convoluted name.
Yeah,
You think it's
yeah.
convoluted?
long.
Yeah,
Even
the,
after
the
seeing the
Hunger
film?
Games, a ballad of songs of snakes and songbirds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Songbirds and snakes.
Yeah, songbird. It's too much. They should have just
let's
called it songbirds and snakes.
let's just talk for a minute, see if
Well,
people jump into the
I did want to say, Joshua, congratulations. I mean, it's not a huge prediction, but you have been saying that week number 2, no one was showing up for the Marvels because everyone was going to go watch Hunger Games.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're right. Let me pull up this article real quick.
We were in a small theater for some reason, but we had to sit in the very front of the theater to go watch Hunger Games. We literally were looking all the way straight up.
But you know what? Fortunately, with that specific theater, those seats recline like way back.
It wasn't too bad.
So it wasn't too bad.
So this is an article that was funny. The box office Hunger Games prequel lands on top with 44 million. The Marvels collapse with historic 78% drop.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Ooh, I mean, yeah.
So as
this
far as
thing of predictions for me tonight, because later, I mean, we're going to talk about spoilers a little bit, but I predicted something at the end. It didn't quite go in my favor, but it did a little bit.
But the odds were in your favor.
The odds were definitely in my favor.
All right, so let me read a little bit of this just so we can get an idea of how it performed. The odds were ever in favor of the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which emerged victorious in a busy box office weekend despite opening slightly behind expectations. The Lionsgate film, which brings audiences back to the dystopia of Panem for the first time in nearly a decade, collected 44 million from North America theaters and 98 million globally in its first weekend of release. Those initial ticket sales didn't recapture the spark of the original franchise, which propelled Jennifer Lawrence to global stardom. And so it didn't perform as well as they were hoping, but it definitely isn't a failure. This is the highest performing of the weekend for any of the films. That includes like the new Thanksgiving movie, the Trolls movie. It outperformed all of those and outperformed Marvel's for the week 2. So week 1 was catastrophic and week 2 is even more catastrophic.
Yeah.
Marvel's is out here breaking all kinds of Marvel records.
Not in the good way either.
No, not in the opposite direction. I mean, I believe it was said something like in America, the Marvels for week 2 only made $7 million.
Whew.
Yeah.
And they only made, what was it, $45 million last weekend for opening weekend? Now that we're talking about a Marvel's movie with 250 million plus budget compared to the Hunger Games, which is sitting at an easy estimated budget of 100,000. So with
100 mil.
the 100 mil, sorry. So with this isn't updated yet. The article gives us 98 million. But this IMDb is not updated yet. But with the worldwide income, we're almost right at the budget. So the theatrical run for this movie, I think, will make its money back. How far past that is hard to say, but it did all right, and it did a lot better than Marvel's, and Marvel's is really in the gutter at this point.
Yeah. But let's go over to the actual Hunger Games movie.
Yeah,
and not just predicting the Marvels against the Hunger Games. So just walking away from it right off the bat, I think I would give it like a 7 or 6 out of 10.
I was not mad at this film at all.
No.
And actually I would give it a
I was only for the games.
I will give
And
it
I wish I
uh,
didn't have.
7, a confident 7. I will give this movie.
Yeah.
This is a weird one for me because portion the movie's long,
Mhm.
and that's not a point in its favor, because there's portions of the film I think are good and portions of the film I think are bad. So it's hard to sort of generalize everything into one number.
Right.
Um,
But you can do it.
yeah, it's it would have to be like it'd have to be a 6.
A 6.
A
Okay.
6 for me.
So where are we going to start? Do we want to talk negatives or positives first? Because we all seem middle of the road happier about the movie.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we should I think we should break the movie down in its 3 acts because it
Okay.
has 3 parts of the movie.
Definitely.
So I think we should kind of give our pros and cons for each part of the movie.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's start with the first act before they get to the games.
Mhm.
You know,
The
the
build up.
the build up, but the mentor, the introducing the mentors in
Mhm.
a sense, because they've already had the games for 10 years or 9 years at this
Mhm.
point, and this I would almost call the first act introducing mentors.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that's what it was. They kind of played on a lot of, the graduating class was going to have to become mentors to get what they wanted, this prize, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And they all didn't get to pick their mentors or their tributes, but they all got assigned somebody to, be a mentor for.
Do you guys remember the chapters that broke up the acts? Do you remember
Yeah, I
what
wanna say the
the
first one was
titles of those?
called, like, The Mentor or something.
Mhm. And then the second one was the tribute.
The tribute, and then the last one was the what was he? The peacekeeper?
Yeah.
He was a
It's
peacekeeper,
hard for me
yeah.
to remember. It's always interesting when they you choose to divide it up into chapters, but it
Um,
kind of keeps it formatted.
yeah, so the first part of the movie was intriguing. It was good because they were the whole point of the first part before we get to the games is, um, how do they justify keeping the Hunger Games going, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think the whole point of that first part was really setting up the what we see in the original movies, which is the spectacle.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah.
whole. It couldn't
It,
just be, oh, here's these kids. They get into a ring and they kill each other. I think that's kind of what it was up until that point.
mhm.
Um, this was establishing the whole. It has to be a spectacle. They have to
Right.
get good food. They
Right.
get training.
Yeah.
They get observed. Everybody
Well,
sees them and chooses their favorites and falls in love and that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, even in this one, like, the tributes weren't even getting fed till they got to
Mhm.
the games, and in the new one, they are getting fed a lot. They're
Yeah,
having
a
time
lot.
to train. They're
Mhm.
getting time to get allies, meet each other, but they're also in the older ones, like, separate a lot where by districts, and
Yeah.
they're not all just put together to where this one, they're literally all thrown into one cage, and they just
Mhm.
have to be until the games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're setting up that mentor thing that you see in all the movies is that the tributes have a mentor who tells them what to do, who helps get them sponsors and all of that.
Yeah. It's interesting the approach that they had of the mind shift
Mhm.
with the early Hunger Games, where it was viewed more like a gladiator setting, where it's like
Yeah.
throw them in there because the the citizens of Panem were literally not even expecting it to be very long,
Mhm.
which was interesting. They thought it lasted a lot longer than it should have,
Yeah.
and so it's interesting to see that variety of approach. And then you move to the second act, which is throughout the games, and and really establishing a very strong bond between President Snow and uh, Mary Gray, no,
Lucy.
Lucy Gray,
Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, Lucy Gray, and Snow, and I actually they did a really good job, especially for all the heat that Rachel Zegler's
Mhm.
been capturing.
I thought
They
the
did a
same thing.
really their chemistry worked. I think it worked
Yeah.
better than Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson. You know,
What did you guys think of her accent that she was putting on? So it was a little bit weird in some parts, but in some parts,
Hokey.
I think it worked.
It's
I
kinda
think
hokey for me.
by the middle of the movie, I stopped. I stopped
Yeah, you
noticing
stop
it.
hearing it about the middle of the movie, but I leaned over to my brother when we were watching, right before
Ethan
she
was
says anything, and I say, "Cue hokey, like, Southern
accent.
accent from
Yeah,
Rachel Zegler."
Ethan was hardcore, cringing. He was just like, "I don't
Well,
like this."
the biggest cringe, I think, for me was the singing portions.
There was a lot
Um,
of singing in this, a lot.
it and not the singing itself. I don't mind the singing. That was kind of the catalyst of the performance aspect of the Hunger Games. It was I think the way they introduced the singing, especially at the very beginning with her, I would have liked for everybody to have been singing when she sang. Or
Mm,
I would have liked her to be, as she was walking up, to be humming or singing. I don't know. The delivery of that scene fell flat, fell really flat for me.
well,
And
you're
so every time she sang after that, I was like, ugh.
you're not the you ha- I didn't mind it. I feel like as far as the districts go, it
Mm,
Mhm.
presented a new light to the districts because in the Hunger Games, we're just always sympathetic, especially to District 12, but to all of them because it's about the
mhm.
rebellion and the oppressed. And right now, they're still fresh off of this huge rebellion, massacre, war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even in the districts, I know a lot of it's from Snow's point of view, but there's no real, like, you can't look at one and be like, yeah, they're the Penem are definitely the bad guys, and the districts are the good guys. Really,
Yeah.
it's a mixed bag, and that's the
Mhm.
way I think it should feel. So when we get to the Hunger Games, when everyone is showing respect to Katniss Everdeen, I feel like
Mm,
that is more of an anomaly situation, and you can't have that. You can't have that happening before, otherwise it takes away from the Katniss story, in
yeah.
my opinion. So no, I don't.
Well,
I like that they kind of were snickering
well,
about
the
this girl
the
going to the reaping.
the other two, I'm just gonna get these other two big complaints out of the way, so we don't have to cover them again. Is the dialogue, especially kind of at the beginning of the movie,
Mhm.
Yeah.
was really lackluster for me. Um, just lots of bad dialogue.
You don't think it was even better than anything out of Marvel? Anything out of Marvel?
No,
It
no,
wasn't
No,
better?
well,
no, no, no.
s
Like,
the character that played Snow and, uh, Gray and, like, the main characters, I think were good in
yeah,
my opinion.
they were pretty solid,
The
but
side characters, especially the main some of the tributes
mm,
specifically were what I had a problem with, like the girl
I'm
with
not talking
red
about
hair, she was
performance.
terrible.
I'm not talking about performance. I'm talking about the writing of the dialogue. The dialogue performance overall was fine, um, but I'm talking specifically about the writing itself was left much to be desired, especially at the beginning of the movie. And then I guess a lot of people aren't going to see this as a complaint. I don't like the technology because I feel like the technology should have been much more
Advanced?
advanced.
How do you mean?
Well, we're going from lots of analog technology
Mhm.
to hovering trains in 50 years, 60 years.
No,
Right.
no, uh, 90 years. Or
Yeah,
no, yeah, you're
90.
right. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. Your
It's
timeline's more better more right than
it's
mine.
just I like the kind of analog of everything. I love the way that looks. It really makes it feel dystopian.
Mhm.
but Hunger Games is their technology is very futuristic
Futuristic,
in
yeah.
the original games, whereas here
Well, and
it's much more closer to like the 30s or 40s, and I
yeah.
don't
Well,
think
like the
uh
third movie too, the third Hunger Games,
mhm,
it has like a lot more stuff in it than like even like how could they have that
mhm.
when they had this, you know,
Yeah,
just
I think I would have preferred if they had presented it as um they had more advanced technology, but the war kind of broke them down a bit. So there's still bits of technology, more advanced technology around, and they're just slowly kind of rebuilding.
Yeah.
But just the technology of the time, it doesn't feel realistic for it to go. There weren't enough things like the genetic stuff. I was
Hmm.
looking at and I was like, okay, so this makes sense that this could evolve into what they're doing
Yeah.
in the future movies, but the other technology, I was like, that doesn't translate to a more technologically advanced society, especially a dystopian society.
True. I
yeah.
mean, you're not wrong there. There was a huge technological advance
Mm,
from this prequel to the actual Hunger Games films,
yeah.
and it's a lot. I think they
Mhm.
chose to go this direction not only because it's probably a part of the book. I read the originals, but not this new one,
Mm.
and I'm assuming it's probably some of the book, but also it's an aesthetic. It
Oh,
really
the
is.
aesthetic is awesome. I love the aesthetic.
And I think the filmmakers and cinematographers wanted a visual difference to really explore this before four times or whatever
The before four times.
It's
of Pan Am and the
funny.
districts.
It's funny how you say, you know, the filmmakers almost like they're
The
the
game
game maker.
makers.
They are in some ways. And since you hit your negatives, I want to hit my
Mm.
only one really.
Mhm.
Um, I felt like I needed about 10 minutes more of why uh, Mary Gray, Lucy
Lucy.
Gray, why Lucy Gray and Snow distrusted each other all of a sudden in the cabin. I needed 10 more minutes of explanation or build up to that
Mhm.
because it happened all of a sudden and very quickly. And I felt like that didn't track for their relationship very well.
Yeah.
I understood why, and I understood the each person's motivations, but it just didn't leave the emotional impact I think they wanted it to, because that was
Mhm.
really a big turning point for Snow as a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they should have showed a little bit of something in the third act when he becomes um when he gets sent to District 12. Maybe they should have showed a little bit more there.
Well, they showed quite a bit.
Yeah, they did.
I think her, I actually didn't have so after the games, and I think we're jumping ahead a little bit. After the games is the portion I think I enjoyed the most.
It's a
Yeah.
good section of the
You're
story, but I'm saying it's the turn. It's the
Mhm.
distrust of each other because they literally leave town trusting each other, and then all along the way to get to the cabin, it
Well
turns.
we can talk about that,
yeah, let's
when we
hit the
kinda
game
get there
first.
because I have some more in-depth thoughts about that,
All
but,
right.
the games themselves
I
and oh, just
This is
characters.
the portion that I feel like could have been cut out a little more. I feel
Mhm.
like they had to show some kind of games and the primitiveness of them, but it went on too long in my opinion. They could have cut some things out, and that was where the story kind of got slow when the games shouldn't be the slow portion because
Yeah.
it's the Hunger Games, but, I
Well,
think it got slow
the
there.
games themselves didn't feel slow to me. Um, I don't know. I didn't have too much issues with the games. They were interesting just because of the setting. Um, it's just this kind of big room that's been blown up,
Yeah.
and I was actually predicting more of a once the first uh schoolgirl mentor girl gets stabbed in the neck with a bottle. Um and then his classmate gets bit by the snake. I was like, "Oh, so maybe they're going to do an almost Hunger Games type thing with the mentors, as like they
Mm-hmm.
slowly sort of die off."
Right.
They didn't do that.
It would have been an interesting parallel if you told
Mhm.
the story that way, but
Yeah.
that's not the direction they chose. That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
So the Hunger Games themselves, I thought, in my opinion, I think it's the best part of the film. I think it
Oh, you the
Okay.
opposite of what I think.
All right.
100%. I think
Okay, what
it sets up
what made
Snow
it good for
perfectly.
you? Okay, what made it good for you?
I'm saying it. I think it sets up Snow and his motivations and his care for Lucy Gray in a
Mhm.
brilliant way. It also just reveals so much about each individual character. So it all the way down to the reporter. Like, I love the casting they did for the anchor guy,
Oh,
because it
for
has
Flickerman,
Flickerman, because it has that
he
what
was the best. I think he was the best character in the movie.
I
The
think
most I think he was the most true to the, like,
yeah.
source material.
But and what it does is, in my opinion, I think Flickerman was the inspiration for all the anchors past him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I think he was really the forefather of to
Well,
create this Hunger Games
yeah, well,
reporter vibe.
Stanley Tucci's character is named Flickerman as well.
Yeah,
Did they keep the
Caesar.
name?
His name is
yeah, yeah.
Caesar Flickerman.
Caesar Flicker. Okay. Uh, but I think the Hunger Games was the most interesting part. I loved it, and I know we have, like, from Rachel Zegler to um, who's the lady, the game
Viola
maker, Viola Davis.
Viola Davis.
We take issue with
Which
these actors, but listen, they did brilliantly.
Mhm.
so I'm gonna have to
They
eat my
really
words,
did
which
brilliant.
I do sometimes, once in a while. I eat a word sandwich up in here. Um,
Which, when
I
you
act
said you weren't feeling it, when you said you predicted it wasn't going to be great on her part.
what? Oh, Viola Davis, yes. So I'm not a fan of her normally. She does the same thing a lot of times. It's just her. She's a good actor, but I didn't think it would be great. I actually was pleased with
Mhm.
the way they took her character and how she played it. It was different and it
Yeah.
felt good.
She was crazy scientist, but not too crazy, which I think
She was a genius when it came
which
to
is
the game.
important. Yeah, she's
A psychopath.
that's when you're doing crazy scientist character, the idea often gets muddled and they become like too wacky zany. She was
Hmm.
crazy, but not too crazy, which I liked. Yeah.
I did. I think, as far as these characters revealing themselves, I think the best writing in the film happens during the games. The
Yeah.
intricacies of each person's tribute, or at
Mhm.
least the glimmers, and their relationship with the tribute, because you're telling so many stories
Yeah.
of each mentor to tribute relationship in this period of time. If they care, if they don't care,
Mhm.
if they're in it for themselves, or they genuinely have feelings about their tribute. And then we get this close up on Snow and Lucy Gray, and I think it just tells a beautiful, like, the birth of a beautiful, caring relationship. I think
But
it's just
Yeah.
but that's kind of overshadowed, or not overshadowed, but contrasted with his need to win the prize. He needs that prize. He needs
but
the money. He's
here's the
doing it
thing.
for but every decision that he makes, while I would say he makes one decision, one big decision for her, which kind of screws himself over. But every other decision he makes is for himself. Um the training her to make her a star, to make people love her. He needs that because he knows she's not going to win. Going in and getting his friend out, he does for Viola Davis's character, because she promises him, it's like, you'll get that prize, even though um, Peter Dinklage is like, I don't like
Yeah,
you. You're not getting that prize. You'll never
right,
get
right,
that
right.
prize.
I
Yeah,
think
I I enjoy Peter Dinklage as just
which was
an
good.
actor,
Of course.
and he always kills it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, I think it's during the games, especially at the end, when he makes the decision to take matters into his own hands to really save her life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is when it turns to when, in my view of the story, yes, he's making selfish decisions, but personally, I think it's at that point that he really cares more about her than his future, because
Mm-hmm.
he was ready and willing to go to 12. He was ready
Yeah.
and willing to run away with her. He was ready and willing to spend, what was it, 20 years
Mm-hmm.
in service as a peacekeeper, but in order to be with her, and yes, he was tempted by the offer that that general or that head keeper made him,
Mhm.
but he ended up still going with her to run away north. I honestly think it was during the games is when that the motivation for himself switched to really truly caring for her. I think
It
that's
also
when it
it also
happened.
is the point of the movie that establishes what kind of person he can be when
Yeah.
Yes.
he bludgeons that kid, and he's like that. He tells his cousin, he's like, that felt good, that felt powerful,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Which
just that glimmer.
did
Mhm.
you did you catch the tie-in with the other movies with his cousin,
Yeah,
Tigress?
Tiger. Yeah, that crazy tiger tattooed lady in the Hunger Games
Hmm.
that
Yeah. On the
helps
what was
Katniss
it, the
escape.
3rd movie?
Yeah.
Yep. Which Kenzie actually had to tell me that because I didn't make the connection
I
while I was
caught that
watching the
right
movie.
away. I caught that
I
right
totally
away.
forgot about that character from the Hunger Games.
Hmm.
Totally forgot about it. Um, but I think I that all that to say, I think the Hunger Game portion of the story revealed so much about all the complex characters
Mm.
and really was the biggest turning point for Snow as a character himself.
Yeah.
And it makes that makes his story interesting, because
Hmm.
if you don't have him turning from his ambitions to her, then we don't have the final result where he feels betrayed and ultimately becomes so cynical that he becomes the President Snow we know from the other Hunger Games. And
Yeah.
so without that turning point, without him truly caring for her and caring less about his own ambitions, then we don't have an interesting character story.
Yeah. I mean, it almost like you could, you know, if you follow the length of his hair is like, the shorter it gets, the more evil he gets,
Hmm.
I guess.
Uh,
The less evil, I guess. I don't know.
the Yeah, and the games also sets up, um, I mean, some in some ways, very obviously, some of the things that happen in later Hunger Games. The recording of it all, the spectacle of
Mhm.
it all,
The drones that don't
the
work,
drones that
but they
don't
gave it a go.
work, the ceiling collapses, creating sort of a makeshift cornucopia in the
Right,
middle.
right.
You know
Um,
I've
uh, Go ahead.
always said I am not a fan of sequel movies
Mm,
or prequel, they're always very hacky in my opinion. Oh, you're just creating stuff for more content to make more money, and I don't like it a lot of times, but I really enjoyed this as a prequel movie. It explained a lot of
mhm.
stuff we are anticipating for the movies that we love, the original 1, 2, 3. And then I would love, and I didn't even say
4.
this yet. I would love to see Hunger Games, Hunger Games 35. You
Yeah.
know, write another book in 20 years from now when
Mhm.
President Snow is gotten farther into the capital and farther into his you know the stuff that he's done, and then show us Hunger Games again. Show
Oh,
us a little bit more.
Haymitch. Haymitch is Hunger Games.
True.
Yes.
There's a little bit of it in the
Ooh.
books. There's a little bit of it in the books, and what he does and how he wins his
What
games by
do you
thwarting
know
the system.
what year did they say in the books what year
Mm-mm.
he is? They have to
But,
have said
honestly, I feel like you could get, the other Sutherland to play Snow, Donald Sutherland's son, Kiefer
Yeah.
Sutherland. You could
Yeah.
probably get him. You get him in a beard and the white hair.
Pretty
He's
similar.
old. He's older, but he would look young enough to be the president while Haymitch is in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. So the the last portion of the movie, like I said, I really enjoyed because that's when all the things that they're setting up. Oh, that's when all the pins start getting knocked down.
Yeah.
You see more of the girl like singing out in 12.
District 12.
You
Yeah.
kind of the folksy sort of atmosphere of 12 kind of gets established in how they are and who they are.
The
Um,
rebellion spirit still
the
thriving.
rebellion spirit, the corruption of the peacekeepers, um, and then Snow doing these things, right? He's trying to he's being good, he's just trying to stay, but he keeps doing these things, right? He rats
Recording his friend.
yeah, he rats on Sejamus, who also excellent performance from him, I thought.
Which
Um,
I couldn't get this out of my head. Joshua, did you, when you saw him, did you just constantly think Sam Edelson from Dying of the Leaves? I just
No.
kept seeing he
No.
in my mind, this guy looked so similar.
mhm.
I kept thinking he looked like Dying of the Leaves
Yeah.
character.
Now I will say or no, I can save that for the end. But like he shoots the girl
Yep.
Mhm.
for saying something about Lucy Gray. And then the other guy gets shot, and then he rats on his friend. And those so when you were talking about them going out to the cabin, um, those are the things that when she notices when he doesn't bat an eye at his friend, who's very obviously and clearly his friend getting hung.
Yeah.
Those are the indicators. He shoots that girl. Those are the things that he's like is displaying to her that um there's something wrong with him. And so
He's
while
violent.
yeah, he's violent. We actually Ethan and I predicted that she was going to like poison him with the rat poison that he
Freaking
gave her.
I wanted the
That's what I was waiting
So
for.
whole thing. They never gave it to us. The famous sores in President Snow's
Mhm.
mouth from consuming poison. We never got it. I for sure
No,
Never
thought
got
we were gonna get it.
absolutely not.
we did get a poison scene, which is what I predicted. I said there was gonna be some kind of like him making a toast, and then everybody drinks, and then just like a bunch of people die. We didn't
Yeah.
get a bunch, but we did get, Peter Dinklage character got poisoned, and that was
Every
enough to give us a little taste.
every scene though where they hang somebody at the tree and then the Jabberjays just like fly around repeating their
Ooh,
last words. Those were incredible scenes. And then the scene
very
in the
ominous.
woods when he's chasing after her, I thought was really, really good on his part. They there was some hokey stuff where she's like, I think I like the name Katniss better. Right? That was a little, but they brought it back around where she's like, I'm just gonna go I'm gonna go pick some Katniss. I'll be right back. And he's like, didn't you say it was out of season? And she's like, well, things can change really quick. I think that's another point, like in the favor of kind of her thoughts on what was
Yeah.
going on. Things can change really quick.
And
Yeah.
that's fine. I think they just meant so much to each other after the
Mhm.
games that just deteriorated. With it, it could have happened the same speed. I just needed another scene. I needed
Yeah.
or just something more to slow that process down a touch for the emotional involvement of myself. You know?
And something I thought was really kind of hokey in the first movies was the Hanging Tree song. I thought the
Yeah.
song itself was a little bland, but when they show you the tree and they show you the everything going in and then her writing the song,
Mm-hmm.
um
It's got
it's
context.
got context. It's got,
Context.
what is it? Brevity, is that the word
Yeah,
I'm looking
and
for?
in some
Weight to
ways,
it.
Lucy Gray becomes a legend at District
Mhm.
12 because she got away.
Did she?
We don't know. That's why she's a legend.
Mhm.
And
I
and her music resonates inside District 12 for generations.
I totally thought that she was gonna like keep him on like a wild goose chase through the woods, whistling different tunes, and whistle the one that Katniss comes up with.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought that, but that didn't happen either. But it was solid. And then at the end, just briefly, so some of the dialogue I hated at the beginning of the movie, where Peter Dinklage just randomly is like, "Oh yes, I knew your father." But that scene like made
I think
me
you're just mad that they gave Dinklage some bad lines.
that they really did. That particular bit of writing actually physically made me cringe. I was like, how could they have not done this like like a one sentence from Snow? Just one
Mhm.
sentence could have prompted that interaction.
Yeah.
Because what he does at the end, the conversation that they have at the very end is so poignant. It's
Yeah.
so well delivered. It's so well thought out.
Tied into the Hunger Games and the Snow lineage.
Mhm.
My goodness.
It's
Yeah.
and it informs on all of Peter Dinklage's decisions up to that point. I just wish there was a little bit more context for that line he had there. Um,
You
but
know, in
yeah.
some ways, I feel like they wrapped up Peter Dinklage as a character, his story, better than they wrapped up Lucy Gray's, in my opinion.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a rounded out character. We know his motivations, and before he dies, we
Mhm.
know his we know his regrets. And
Mhm.
we understand where he's coming from. Whereas I felt like Lucy Gray dropped off the map with Snow
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the cabin, and I still feel like there was questions that I
Yeah.
needed. You know what I mean?
Well,
Answers I
and
needed.
yeah, setting up. I didn't actually think that Snow was going to be so involved in District 12, and it's going to be like, oh, he hates District 12.
Right. Right.
Um, but
But
they
they
did
did.
that. But the
Sort
whole
of.
Peter Dinklage being like, your father stole the idea from me and then put my name on it, and now I have to live with it
Mhm.
every day. He doesn't have to live with it. He's dead.
Yeah.
I have to, and now you have
Mhm.
made it
Continue.
better.
It was
You
about to
made it
die.
continue. It's gonna die.
He was like,
Yeah.
if my plans was working. I
Yeah.
was making the Hunger Games boring.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that's very intricate to, like, the father, now the son.
Yeah. So I think kind of my final thoughts of the movie as well.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie by any means, or that I feel a need to watch it again. It is definitely a lot of movie, and there's a lot of interesting stuff
and you feel
in
like
in the movie.
it's a good watch at least once, right? For pretty much
Yeah,
anything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
was
would say so.
definitely entertained. It did get to the
Are
point where
you not entertained?
I was like, "Man, this movie is going on and
Yeah.
on."
I didn't feel
I
that
didn't know
way.
where definitely, like, after the games, I was like, "Where are we gonna end here?
Mhm,
Because 'Cause we're still telling the story, but and I didn't even look at my phone or watch or anything through the
mhm.
whole thing, so I was like, "I don't know how long we've been going." Usually, that's what I'll do. I'll look and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's been going for an hour."
It
Right.
was a
We still
two and a
got time,
half
but
hour movie, too
yeah,
long.
and
I yeah.
I didn't know where it was gonna end, and there wasn't no indication because usually you can kinda feel where the
Yeah.
ending is, but
I would
not with
say
this.
I would say if you cut out 15% of the movie, rewrote 30% of the dialogue, it would have been an incredible movie.
Uh, you could have written some better dialogue, but I wouldn't cut anything personally.
No, I
If
wouldn't
even
either.
yeah, even if you had rewritten 30% of the dialogue, it would have been a much better movie, but I still think
Yeah, I would agree with
it
that more.
there's some fat on the movie that could have been trimmed.
Well,
Sure,
you
but that I feel like that's
could
fat
say it
that
was
really
all
cushions
movie.
well the important bits. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You need the cushioning. You can't just have like, here's the
Ghostbusters
story, it's
first,
done. You know,
his
you
movie was
gotta.
a little cushion.
It's a journey. I mean, it's Snow's journey,
Mm.
and
It's
it.
definitely Snow's journey, and they really pushed Rachel Zegler um in the trailer material, which we talked about. I was like, man, I really hope this is about snow,
Yeah.
and it was, and I
Mhm.
think that made the movie that much better for me.
Because it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. I mean, it's the
Mhm.
character we know, it's the character we're tuning into.
Yeah.
And it's a dark take, which a good origin
Mhm.
story for a villain is always fun, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And with that, I think we should wrap up.
Yeah, I think so too. Let us know, hey, if you guys have seen the movie yet. Let us know what you guys thought of it. What did you enjoy with the first, second, third act? What did you think about the characters, the dialogue, all that stuff? Let us know. And we will be back with our live podcast on Friday at noon. So be watching for that. But till then, we will see you on the next reaction or the next thing on the studio. But this is Monday All Weekend. We will see you next weekend.